Hey everyone, this is Stephanie O'Brien, founder of Coach Client Connection and program design specialist. And today I'm bringing in a special guest who's going to talk about how coaches can significantly improve your conversion rates. You get a lot more clients per conversation just with a simple shift in how you approach that conversation. So you spend less time spinning your wheels in the inbox and more time actually serving clients. So thank you very much for joining me, Lisa.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here and chat with you.
Yeah, great to have you here. So when we first had our conversation, you actually gave me some tips on how I could improve my own approach because you asked me what I do, how I serve people. I told you about my package, and then you pointed out that I mentioned that I myself was looking to increase my conversions, and I was actually leaving clients on the table and referral opportunities on the table by jumping in too quickly to talk about my package. So I'd love for you to tell a bit more about, this common mistake that coaches make, why it's a mistake, and what they can do differently to get more conversions.
Right. I think one of the things that's very interesting is that oftentimes we start from a transactional basis that we lead with our products and our services and our packages and our programs rather than leading with our business and our strategy and the variety of problems that you solve, value that you bring. And the words and phrases that we use are so very important. And when we say it from a strategy standpoint, we push up our noses and we say, ugh, to strategy. And your strategy really are your power words and phrases that are related to the problems that you solve, the value that you bring, the results and outcomes to engage with you. That's what your clients want. They don't really care what you call it as your program or your package or any of those things. And yes, of course, you want to have a cool name and inviting to your audience with that. But we don't need to lead with that because at that point, we don't care yet what that's going to be. We care more about what are you going to do for us and why.
Yeah, it's kind of like, they're trying to book a cruise to the Caribbean and they're saying, like, can you get me to the Caribbean? Oh, yeah, my ship is named so and so, its engine is so and so, model, its hull is, yes, but can you get me to the Caribbean? What kind of experience am I going to have on this boat of yours?
Yes, yes. So, I really think about it as that being consultative is cool, being transactional is trouble. So, earn dollars with your expertise. And as we think about that, there's things that as a service and relationship based entrepreneur and business owner and coach and consultant, you're passionate about why you do what you do. You're great at your crafting your specialty. And so many times you become frustrated related to all things business, marketing, sales, leadership. I'm always curious about why and how individuals are working not only in, but on your business. And is your business working you? Are you working your business? Or have you just created another job for yourself? And
Mhm.
that goes with that part of coming from your crafting your specialty of how are you making that paradigm shift from employee to entrepreneur, that you're stopping leading with your resume and your experience, you're leading with your business and your strategy, and you're being consultative because you're leading with the problems that you solve, the value that you bring, rather than those programs and packages.
And one other thing that I frequently see people screw up is they use what I kind of like to call fake rapport tokens. Like recently, I got an email from a guy, "Hey, I saw your interview on Business Trailblazers. I think you get a lot of value from." And he goes into this whole spiel about his AI training. Like nowhere in my interview did I express an interest in AI training. Nowhere in his email did he mention how he thought my interview indicated interest in AI training. It's like he was just using a shallow mention of my expertise and my thoughts as a fake rapport token to buy a little bit of cheap rapport and then throw it away like the disposable token it was to plunge ahead with his own agenda. Do you see a lot of that in business?
Oh my gosh, it's so interesting because certainly for years I've been getting those cold emails from people saying that I see this is what you do and this is so great for you. So talk to me today. Now it's gone to a whole different level because of AI. And so they're scraping this information and it's pulling out whatever information and then they're copying and pasting it. And let me tell you one even worse. I have a testimonial on my website that's by a gentleman that I know. So when they sent the email to me, they wrote the email to him instead of me. So I wrote back and said, "No, I'm not Sajad. I am Lisa. And I see what you did here. And do you know what's interesting? Nobody ever wrote back to me on it. So the individuals that are doing this or the companies that they're engaging with are just doing these cycles of emails one after the other in their sequences, and they're not reading their responses. They're just looking for push this button, do this thing, and they're not engaging in a real conversation when that's a possibility. It's really sad.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are going for numbers over quality. If I just spam a few hundred people, then maybe a few of them will connect. Whereas, actually getting people, and this is really unacceptable in an area like coaching where trust is mandatory. Like this is a high touch, high contact, high interaction industry. So if you don't even care enough about a person to actually have a conversation with them like a human being, why would they open their wallet?
Right, right. And as a coach or a consultant, we should be coming authentically to the table that we are genuinely curious about who it is that we are talking to, and that we are very prepared to discover wants and needs through a conversation, that you're asking the right questions, you're bringing up the right topics, you're adding massive value, that somebody's going to say to you, "How can you help me? What are next steps? Where do we go from here?" And then you have their story, you have their priorities, you have whatever information that you need to come back and then make those recommendations. And that's where I say, leave your products and your services and your packages and your programs on the shelf, and then pull them off when you're coming to make recommendations that you might certainly call it this, but here's what I understand your priorities to be. Here's what I understand your focus and goals to be. This is why and how we would work together, and this is the investment to do that. You always want to be an investment, not a price, not a cost, not a fee, not an expense, except when they're writing you off on their taxes as appropriate. And we're leaving so much opportunity and dollars on the table on turning transactional by the bright, shiny objects of marketing, like what you just mentioned, that I'm excited about who people are, why they're doing what they're doing, coming to the table, consultative, and then getting jerky in the middle of that by adding these bright shiny objects of marketing, these different tactics of, "Ooh, now I'll do this. Ooh, now I'll do this." And we're not staying true to
Mm.
ourselves to attract the individuals to earn one-on-ones and then be invited to make recommendations for next steps.
Yeah, there's such a huge difference between, hey, I love your profile, buy my shit, and
Yeah.
hey, based on this thing you said about this challenge you're facing, these limitations you're dealing with, this budget you have, this thing you desire, based on all this stuff that I actually took the time to learn about you, this is what I think is the best fit, or this is what I think can help you. The former is just spam. The latter is a caring recommendation from an expert who took the time to get to know you and is offering something you need.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's, I just think it's such a big deal. And the other interesting thing about it is we don't know what we don't know as consumers ourselves. And that's why we need you. And when I say you, I mean all of the different service providers that are out there. So we need the right website developer, and we need the right virtual assistant. And those two are kind of good examples from the aspect of virtual assistants sometimes come to the table with their McDonald's menu of options, and then
Uh,
they say, "I can do this and I can do this and I can do this. What do you want?" Well, if I already knew that, I would already be doing it with somebody else, or doing it myself and having my systems and processes into place. The other thing that gets me is, as a website developer, they sometimes give you three choices on the good, better, or best program or package that we can choose. I don't know which one is the right one for me. And then they put these little bright, shiny pictures on the one in the middle and say, this is the best value. I don't know what all those check marks mean and which things I should have and which things I don't. I need you to be the expert to come to the table and make the right recommendations to me. And too many times we're not brainstorming our competitive edge, the variety of problems that you solve, value that you bring, the results and outcomes, so that you're then prepared to ask the right questions. So you find out the gaps of where is somebody, where do they want to be, then how do I make very appropriate recommendations to them of why and how to engage together.
That is so much of a better strategy than what I usually get in my inbox. Like, just about every time I get a message from a VA, an SEO expert who is usually like first name bunch of numbers at gmail.com, or a website developer. There's a website developer twice. A VA website developer and SEO expert. My first thought is, if that canned message was ever going to work on me, it would have worked for the several hundred other people who have already sent me almost that exact verbatim spam.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I just go delete. And I'll tell you another quick interesting story. I had a partner who did email marketing. And so he and I partnered up together. And when I would receive those spammy emails, I copied him on the email and I wrote back to the person, thank you for your message. And I kind of said, I see you did this, or I'm wondering about this. And I say, please meet my friend Steve. And I said, I think that the two of you should have a conversation. And do you know, nobody responded to them, which was the same thing that I mentioned on the other emails. Nobody's responding to these emails because somebody else is setting them up. I think the business owners don't really know where they're going. So they're not ever getting into a real conversation about that.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point, if I get an email like that, I block the sender. Sometimes if they have a domain, I block their domain if it's not like a generic domain, and I block the key phrases in their email because I'm just that like that's how negative my response is to those
Yeah.
emails at this point. So yeah, if you're using that kind of spammy tactic, understand this is the reaction you're getting. People hate you.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So another common mistake I've been seeing is if people will send me a friend request and I greet them, with something like, "Hey, thanks for connecting with me. How's your week going?" Or "Hey, thanks for connecting with me. What made you want to connect?" And sometimes I get a thumbs up. Sometimes I get nothing. Sometimes I get like a one sentence response that doesn't actually include any questions or any attempt to continue the conversation. And I tend to get the impression that these people are just kind of spray and praying their friend requests. They have a basic idea that they should increase their numbers on Facebook, but they have no idea what comes next. Like the Heath Ledger's Joker, I'm like a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do with them if I caught them. So, what advice would you have for someone who's kind of in that position, spray and praying friend requests, but doesn't really know what to do with a person if they accept the friend request?
Right. Well, so let's think about it from two different ways. The first one is when you receive those friend or connection requests, you can easily say, "Thank you, Stephanie, for inviting me to connect. Please introduce yourself and tell me more about coach client connection. How can I support you through our connection?" So you're asking or you're saying an open-ended statement of tell me about, and then you're also saying how can I support you by this. So you're asking open-ended questions to get a response. And then on LinkedIn, I have another question that I like to ask after they write back to there that I can write back real on that conversation. And also, then I'm always curious about why and how individuals are using LinkedIn. And so I'll say something about I found LinkedIn as a powerful tool. How are you finding value? So you're keeping that conversation going because when you're inviting somebody to connect on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever it is, that's your part of making an introduction and gaining favorable attention so that you can earn the one-on-one to discover wants and needs. On the other side, when you're the one that is deciding to invite somebody to connect, create your line of why it is that you want to connect. And you can do it for different reasons to say that I see you are something, if there's something specific connected or thinking about or on your profile or whatever it is that you're genuinely interested in. So we say that. And so I'd welcome the opportunity to connect. Then when they connect, you start that whole authentic conversation over again. Thank you for connecting with me. Please introduce yourself and tell me more about. And I would consider doing that conversation first before you put your calendar in the message and say, hop on my calendar and let's have a conversation. And I will say that I think we need to be a whole lot more intentional with our rich, robust conversations and stop thinking about, I'm going to have a coffee chat to find out how we can support one another. Because then that just goes to a conversation around cats and dogs and kids and not necessarily being intentional about why we're doing what we're doing. And all because you're intentional and you're genuinely curious about who it is that you're talking to, that does not make you a slimy salesperson.
Yeah, I like to kind of set an intention at the beginning of calls. Like we're here to talk about each other's businesses, to learn what kind of services we share and why we're doing what we're doing and how we can support each other and our mutual clients, in the case of business calls.
Yes, and we have to be prepared for what we would call those strategic referral power partners of how are we asking lots of questions and bringing up lots of topics, and then how are we closing out that conversation different from saying, "Oh, this has been great. I'll share some referrals with you and you can share some referrals with me," and then you never hear from that person again. But how are you being intentional about why and how you can work with, for, and on behalf of mutual clients? And what is it that you do before, during, and after the work that they do related to their clients, that you're finding that real synergy about why and how you can support, collaborate, and engage with one another for the win-win-win all the way around.
Yeah, having those specific action steps and calendaring those specific action steps while you're still on the call is such a game changer. Otherwise, it is so easy to just become out of sight, out of mind. You have this great conversation, you're totally planning to refer people, and then you just plumb forget that the person even exists.
Yes, yes. And especially when you realize that it is a strategic referral power partner kind of thing, I think that it makes sense to plan that next meeting, whether the flow of your conversation was that you do that in 30 days or 60 days or whatever that is, and you book it right then and there. That's the same thing with your next conversation as a potential client, that if you are going to review your notes and come back and share your scope of work proposal, recommendations with somebody, you should be setting that next meeting right then and there on that call. If they don't ask you for, how can you help me? What are next steps? You have to decide whether you're going to proactively do that, or if you really realize that you should be scheduling another conversation with them, that is yet another conversation, because not everybody is ready to go to, how can you help me? What are next steps from that first conversation? So we need to feel and sense that, to then, instead of saying it was great to talk to you, if you consider it to be meaningful and purposeful to continue that conversation, then make that recommendation, schedule that time right then and there, and make it happen so that it's fresh and continual as you move along.
Absolutely. Those are all really great tips. I appreciate you sharing them. So, now how did you first get into helping people with this?
So I came from education in my background. I really noticed the disconnect between education, workforce, leadership, business, and entrepreneurship. And I thought I need to bridge that gap. So I pivoted before pivoting was cool, to move from working with the little kids that were already entrepreneurial and leadership in spirit to catch them as big kids when they're coming out to plan, develop, and grow their businesses and become leaders within organizations. We haven't done such a great job through education and experience to develop individuals into leaders through communication and create peak performers. And then how are you becoming a thought leader in your industry overall? So it's really important for us to think about what is your strategy? What are roles and expectations? What does productivity look like and accountability?
Yeah, what does productivity look like? It sounds like especially important for leaders. Yeah, how many times have you seen people complain about meetings and such and just waste time? This could have been an email.
Right, right. And having that focus on how are we efficient, effective, and productive with why we're doing what we're doing. How are we celebrating our successes and then talking about any agenda items when you talk about a meeting, and then how are we taking action on those agenda items and on those celebrations that we made, that we're really celebrating our strengths, considering our ideas to develop, what are our areas for growth? And guess what? Sometimes we have to break habits that are no longer efficient, effective, and productive. So we can't keep exploring and reflecting upon best practices and integrate everything we're learning into everything we do without stopping some of the things that we should stop or transform, that again are not no longer efficient, effective, and productive.
Yeah, I've had to learn to look at some of my own calendar items, just like color code, categorize. Okay, I don't have time for all the important stuff and all this other stuff. What do I need to just like either delete or kick down the road a few months to give myself room for these other higher priority tasks?
Right, absolutely. And a lot of coaches and business owners miss the opportunity to book time with yourself. So if you have a brainstorming task to do, that you need to brainstorm something about your strategy, or you want to write a blog, or you want to update something that you have to work on, schedule that 30 minutes or that hour or that 90 minutes in your calendar with yourself, and be true to yourself and keep that appointment with yourself. The other thing about that is that if there are recurring kinds of things in your calendar to do, that if you are a person who makes this many phone calls, or you write this many emails, or you do this many connections on Facebook, for instance, then put them in your calendar. And if you're doing them on a daily basis or every other day basis, and for whatever reason on Monday, if you take advantage of your entrepreneurial spirit and flexibility to do something else on Monday that doesn't allow you to make those calls or emails or connections, then move them over to Tuesday and double up on Tuesday if those are your big priority, because otherwise they are gone forever and you lose them. And one of the problems about time and entrepreneurship is that you can be structured with big time flexibility and spontaneity in what it is that you do. So instead of just winging it overall, if you create your structures and your process and your calendar, that it really works for you and what you do, you can easily have flexibility why and when you want to as well, and not have everything fall apart.
Yeah, I find it helps to just give everything a specific time slot, like emails 1 to 1:30, posting on social media 1:40 to 2 o'clock, etc. And then if I just really feel like doing a different task than what I've got scheduled, I can maybe just take this task on Tuesday and swap it out with the one on Monday.
Yes.
I've done that a
Yes.
few times this week. So no, I feel like doing this task, or this something urgent came up that makes this task a higher priority now. So I'm just going to swap these two tasks places. And if you got an hour slot task and an hour slot task, you can just swap those hour slot tasks without putting yourself behind.
Yes, yes, that's absolutely right. And I don't like to do a lot of always or nevers related to those kinds of things because everybody is different about which kinds of tasks and activities that you want to do at different parts of the day. So schedule them when it's the right time for you, morning or afternoon or evening or whatever time in between. And one of the other things is you have to protect your calendar. It was interesting to me because I was on a networking event a little bit earlier today, and somebody wrote to me in the chat and said that they wanted to have a conversation. And so I said that would be great. And I put my calendar in the chat. And then it was interesting because he wrote back to me and said, "Oh, first time I can talk to you is June 2nd." Well, June 2nd is not that far away. And if your calendar is open 24/7, I tend to wonder about that by why are you doing what you're doing and how are you working with and for your clients or whatever else in your life if you happen to have your calendar available 24/7 as we go along. So it's an interesting kind of thing, and I'm always surprised about sometimes individuals being put off that you're not available in the next 5 minutes. And I realize that when you're looking for a painter, you would love for that painter to be available tomorrow if you're ready for him. But the scary thing about that is if a painter is available tomorrow, how great of a painter are they?
Yeah, sometimes I get invitations and they have one word in them that kills my willingness and ability to attend no matter what the event is. And that word is tomorrow. Do you realize how far ahead my schedule fills up? Uh,
Yes,
if you want me to attend your thing tomorrow, I had better be in an immediate time sensitive crisis that can only be solved by your event. I've had that happen like once in my entire business. A
right.
business partner was kind of acting out and and this person was, offering specific solutions to the exact breakdown I was having in my business that was, actively sabotaging me right then. That was like the one exception. Everybody else who's used the word tomorrow in their invitation has heard no in response.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that and I am exactly the same way. And they just think that you're going to be available. And I'm like absolutely not unless, something changes. I can, put that as a, part two if somebody has to reschedule something. But yeah, I'm not sitting around like that.
Now, my calendar tends to fill up like a week or so in advance. And yes, some of the tasks are more flexible than others. If I have like an optional marketing tactic scheduled for 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and a potential client wants that time slot, hell yeah, I'm going to take the call with a potential client over writing a blog post. But
Right.
you know, there's still got to be that balance between. I only like leave time slots available if there isn't something high priority already in that time slot.
Exactly.
There are
Exactly.
things you can reschedule to make room for a person booking a call, and things you really don't want to.
Right, right. And the other thing is when I talk about protecting your calendar, you should not be available 24/7. You aren't that cool and you don't need to be that cool that you are available 24/7. And especially as a coach, you can get yourself into some real traps and cycles around being available 24/7. And and with that, especially as a coach, you should be present where you are and intentional where you are. And it shouldn't be like, ooh, I'm looking at this notification. Ooh, I might get this thing. Ooh, something else is happening. Excuse me, I have to go do this. There's such problems with those kinds of things, and there's so many individuals that do it. I was on a networking event in a breakout room, and I knew that the guy was texting, and I ignored it for a short period of time. Then we're back again, and I said, "Is there something that you have to take care of?" And he said, "No." And then he put it down, and then he didn't have it anymore. But dude, I can see you right there doing that. Can you see your face?
Yeah. And yeah, I recently had a conversation with one of my new friends on Facebook. She was trying to remember those horrible spammy people that we were talking about earlier. She was trying to
Yes,
reply to every single one of them. I'm telling her, "Hun, you don't owe them your time. You will burn yourself the heck out and have nothing left to give to the rest of your business. Also, you're
right.
probably going to get your spouse more spam that way because you're letting them know that this is an actively monitored account. Stop replying to these people. Block them, please." Well, it's been great talking with you. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. When this we're in our closing, is there anything else that you want to share, like any final thoughts, any next steps? If people, what are the signs that people could really benefit from working with you, and what is their next step, whether it's a free thing they're going to get or to get in touch with you? What's the next best step for them?
Sure. So, if you're kind of feeling like, ugh, about my strategy, or I don't really have a strategy, and that I'm not really happy with my branding, and I feel like all I'm doing is marketing, marketing, marketing. I don't really want to sell. I want to bring value to my clients. I'm no good at follow up. I'm just kind of busy, busy, rather than busy, business, in and on my business. I welcome the opportunity to chat with you because I really want you to get to the place in your business that you know it, you love it, you live it. So hop on my calendar today and let's have a conversation about why you're doing what you're doing and making things happen. On my website, you'll find a couple different downloads. We talked a little bit about time strategies. I have a document on there it's called Boosting Productivity, Time Strategies for Success. So you can check that out on one of my other pages. I have one about networking strategies for success, since we were talking about that for a little bit. And again, I'm fascinated about why individuals do what they do. And so let's chat, because the tools and resources are not at your fingertips to plan, develop, and grow your business. And unfortunately, we're leaving way too much opportunity and dollars on our table. So think about, being consultative is cool. Being transactional is trouble. So earn dollars with your expertise. I'm Lisa Heintzelman with Illuminations Consulting, optimizing your success.
Thank you very much for sharing all that, Lisa. And for those of you who are watching, I'm going to have the links to all these things in the show notes. So whether you're looking at this on my blog, on YouTube, wherever it is, it's going to be in the description or in the post. So you should be able to find it really easily. So thank you, Lisa, and thank you to everyone who's watching. I really appreciate you joining us today, and I hope you all have an amazing day.
Thank you. Have a good one.